Pressure break. Well, it is Thursday, time for your pressure break. There's a very real possibility that you will be able to have a conversation about Jesus as we lead into Holy Week and get closer to Easter. So what does that mean for you? I've been thinking a lot, and I've had several conversations with some folks on staff, Paul in particular, about the way, churches operate and organizations operate, and how people are sometimes, connected to God in that they believe in one God, but then there are other people that have not just a belief that God exists, but they have a relationship with Christ because they believe that Jesus came for a reason, and they might be connected to that, but yet they're somehow not connected to a local church or organization in this confusing gray area. And then, of course, you've got people that really don't have a belief in God at all, would argue possibly even that there is not a God, or they have all kinds of other wild beliefs, about the universe is God, etc., etc. So there are a ton of people, and they all have valid questions. And as a church, we exist to meet them somewhere, to connect with them somehow on some level. I think the problem is occasionally churches, and I've been there many, many times, can get very, very inward focused. So I thought it might be nice for the pressure break today to just talk about Jesus and why he came, because ultimately it's all about Jesus. I just want to paint a quick picture of humanity. Essentially, if you can just imagine a sinking ship with all of humanity on it going one direction. Biblically, that's what we believe. We believe that all of us are destined for hell because we sinned, and we continue to sin. And that separates us from God. So you've got all of humanity going in this one direction, but you've got a God that doesn't want to lose any of humanity, so humanity is saved. And essentially, Jesus is kind of like that bridge, that life raft, that connection point, so to speak, between humanity and God. So Jesus came for a very real reason. So it's not that God is just wanting to send people to hell because they're bad. Quite the opposite. God is wanting to rescue people and save people because he is indeed good. So I would argue that the first reason that Jesus came was just to reveal God. To really reveal who God was, to really almost bring a magnifying glass to the God of the Old Testament, because the God of the Old Testament, as much as we read and get confused, was a God that gave people second chance after second chance after second chance, and really reached out to this nation of Israel to lift them up despite their wandering, despite their confusion, despite their unfaithfulness. I think the second reason Jesus came was to take care of that sin problem. As we get into Holy Week and we talk about a crucifixion and we talk about a resurrection, that happened to take care of our sin problem. Now, in our history, that was a couple thousand years ago, which means my sin and your sin was already dealt with. Theologically, for me, one of the things that I believe and hold on to is that means sins that I have not yet committed a week from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, are actually taken care of by Jesus. Now, that doesn't leave me scot-free to just do whatever I want as long as I believe that. No, I pursue holiness, and there are specific things that I think we're called to as Christ followers. But the reality is, Jesus came to take care of the sins of the world. The third reason that I think Jesus came was to take care of Satan, to destroy Satan's work. And when I say destroy Satan's work, I mean everything that Satan does to distract, to confuse, to lead people in a completely wrong direction, but yet make them feel like, hey, this is okay, this is going to be fine. That's the work that Jesus came to destroy. 1 John 3:8 says this exactly. It says, the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. I mentioned a second ago about the fact that just because I believe Jesus took care of my sin doesn't give me this license to keep on sinning. And I called it a pursuit. I think Paul kind of refers to it as this race, this thing that we keep on pursuing and working towards. The follow-up verse here in 1 John chapter 3 says this: "No one who is born of God will continue to sin, because God's seed remains in them, and they can't go on sinning because they have been born of God." And then verse 10 says, "This is how we know who the children of God are." Folks, we'll be recognized for the life we are leading, be that good or bad. Of course, Satan would prefer the bad. And I believe another reason, and I'll just call this the fourth reason for today so we can wrap this up. The fourth reason that Jesus came was to be an example, to lead a holy life. He led a perfect life, a sinless life, so that when he was innocent and perfect but yet crucified, it actually took care of sin for us. So his perfect life was a sacrifice in our place or in our stead. This is incredible to think about, that Jesus lived on this earth sinless. Here's my question. As we look at ourselves, as we look at a church or organization that we're connected with, and as we look at groups of people outside of the organization, some that believe in God but aren't connected to the body of Christ, and others that don't necessarily believe in God but they need to be saved, how are we connecting to them? Who is doing that work? Where is that work happening? Are we too disconnected and separated to be effective? Do we assume that this is going to be somebody else's problem, that there's maybe a missionary or a paid evangelist or somebody else, maybe even at another church, that's going to be responsible even for people in our neighborhood? Or maybe God is talking to us and saying, you're the connection point. You're the person. It's your time. Do whatever it takes to find ways to connect internally, within a church organization. Doesn't matter what church you're at. Or from that organization and out into a world that's truly lost and on that sinking ship. When I read most of the New Testament, I'm most impressed with Paul's sense of urgency. As he's sharing the gospel, as he's writing these letters, as he's doing a lot of this work from prison even, he has a strong sense of urgency. I truly want us to have that same sense of urgency. This has been your Pressure Break. We'll see you next week.